Welcome to the Art of Procurement podcast with your host, Philip Eidson. Here, thought leaders share the trends, strategies, and tactics that you can use to elevate the role of procurement and your career.
Hi there, and welcome to another Art of Procurement Friday show. And it really feels like it's been a couple of weeks since we had a solo show. I've continued to experiment with the Friday format. Last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of shorter interviews. And the week before that, it was the Al Malali episode, back in episode 55, where I shared things that weren't strictly procurement related, but I think just are really useful once in a while for us to sit back and think about. But I've done that because I'm really aware that I don't want the Friday show just to be a world according to Phil, for the want of a better term, kind of an opinion show. And while I do have a lot of strong opinions on topics across the procurement spectrum, I don't want every Friday show to become a soapbox, essentially. Having said that, I do feel that I have a couple of those in the works, so definitely look out for them. But what I really love is, I'd love to hear from you. What types of content work and what doesn't for you? I know it's cliche, but the show really is nothing without you and the feedback that you're able to give me. So I would really love to hear your thoughts on what the Friday show should be from your perspective. Before I do go into the show today, I wanted to just give you a quick reminder that I recently published a report called the 50 Learnings from 50 Shows. And in the report, I share some of the key takeaways that I've taken from the first 50 episodes of the Art of Procurement. This has quickly become our most popular report of the Art of Procurement. So if you haven't grabbed a copy already, then just head on over to artofprocurement.com/50 lessons. That's artofprocurement.com/50 lessons. So in today's show, I wanted to first answer a question that I received from a listener. And to paraphrase that question, it was, how do I get early engagement with a business? Too often, by the time that the business engages me, all the leverage is gone and I'm just left to rubber stamp a contract. And if you're like me, I think that's something that we can all resonate with. It's definitely a challenge that I've had all the way through my career as a practitioner. And when I sit back and think about this, there's really two pieces to the puzzle I see. There's a macro element and a micro element, if you will. So what do I mean by macro element? Well, that's some of the things that you can't necessarily control. They're policies, procedures, perhaps the objectives of your organization that enable you to develop early engagement. And then from a micro level, it's, do you have the personal relationship with your stakeholders that actually make them want to engage with you early in the process? And in my experience, the key has really been in building that personal relationship. Your ability to do that might be influenced by the macro, by the policies and the procedures of your procurement organization, but bad policies and procedures don't necessarily inhibit early engagement. And I've actually found that in instances where I had none or very little relationship, it's an uphill battle from the start, no matter how good or bad the policies and procedures that you're actually asked to work with are. I've also worked in environments where the use of procurement is mandated and environments where it's not mandated. And even in those mandate environments, if you didn't have that relationship, then stakeholders still find ways to get around engaging with me. They certainly did with me, until those scope and sourcing decisions were effectively made. So in reflection, I think there's really 5 different keys to early engagement with stakeholders. The first thing to think about is, if you're in the same building, take time to co-locate within their department. It might only be for a few hours or a day of the week, but I think that being accessible really demonstrates that you're different, that you want to be part of the team, and that you want to integrate and interact with your stakeholder and your stakeholder's team. Secondly, something that Anna Spady told me back in episode 14 when we were talking about how marketing engages potential prospects really stood out to me. And that's to engage with these stakeholders in advance of you ever really needing anything and without an agenda. That's really the best time to start building those relationships when you need nothing in return. A third key is proactively sharing information that really demonstrates your understanding of the supply markets that's relevant to their area of expertise. Examples can be news that impacts major suppliers in their space, can be new technologies or innovations that you come across, or just on your perspective, your view on how some broader trends may impact what it is that they buy and how they buy it. And in each case, by doing that demonstrates, one, that you're here to help them, and two, that, and I think this is very important, that you know their market. So it really infers that they're going to get some value from working with you, rather than you being, in their eyes, somebody who is just a rubber stamp, someone who does just facilitate a process. Fourth is, when you do pick up projects, focus on the objectives of the stakeholder and not on yours, or at least, in your conversations with them, because these may actually be at odds, as you're likely going to have some cost savings targets to hit, and the stakeholder may not. And if that's the case, the number one way of turning off that stakeholder is to give them the perception that all you are is a way of helping you to meet your targets, that's all they're there for. You can manage that behind the scenes, and generally I think that we all have experienced that savings will ultimately flow. You just don't need to be obvious with your stakeholders in how you position what you're there for and how you're there to help them. And the fifth key that I have for today's episode is to protect them from the procurement process. So help take the pain away from all the hoops that they may have to jump through, all the process that they may have to go through. I think a leading reason why stakeholders don't get us involved is because they fear that process. And the fact that in their mind it's going to both restrict what they want to do and bring significant delay. If you can help protect them from that and take care of everything behind the scenes, it's going to make them much more likely and willing to work with you earlier in that process. Ultimately, I think it boils down to positioning yourself through consistent actions over time as their ally and not as the procurement police, for the want of a better phrase. And when you take a step back, just proactiveness and communications are really key to this whole building a relationship and getting early engagement. So if I go through them very briefly again, first, if you're in the same building, take that time to co-locate. Second is engage when you don't need anything from them and engage without an agenda. Third is proactively share information that really shows them that you know what it is they buy and you know a lot of the intricacies about what they buy. Fourth is, when you do finally have a project, focus on their objectives and not on your objectives, at least in your conversations with the stakeholder. And 5 is, protect your stakeholders from the procurement process. If you do all of these, then it's really going to encourage stakeholders to come to you early, because they're not going to be coming to you worrying, how is this going to add delay or how is this going to add additional work. They're going to be coming to you thinking about how are you going to help facilitate what it is they need to buy, and how are you going to bring your intelligence to help them in their decision making. All right, well, that wraps up another Art of Procurement Friday show. As ever, I'd love to hear what you think and how you've had success in building early engagement with stakeholders. Just head on over to the show notes page, which is artofprocurement.com/early engagement for more information. And to connect, to send me your thoughts, just send me a tweet. The tweet for the show is at AOP Show. That's at AOP Show. All right then, well, thanks so much for listening. I'll be back on Tuesday with another interview show. Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Art of Procurement. To find an archive of all past episodes, you can go to artofprocurement.com/episodes. And to ensure you never miss another show, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe.